Hey guys, it's Kat, and today I'm going to be talking about A Court of Thorns and Roses by Sarah J. Maas. I gave this book a 5 out of 5 stars, and if I could rate it 1,000,000 stars or like a galaxy full of stars, I definitely would, because this book quickly became my favorite just even after a few pages of reading it. If you don't know what A Court of Thorns and Roses is about, it is about a girl named Farah, and her family used to be a very well-off, very high-named family until a tragedy happened and they ended up becoming dirt poor. And from there, it kind of goes through her life of having to pick up the slack in the family, having to do all of this, and one day she makes a mistake in what could have been everyone else's eyes, but in her eyes it was surviving. And from there, where she's taken to the magical land of Prithian, and there she starts to discover about fairies and her captor, who is named Tamlin, and how he might not be a beast at all, and she ends up from wanting to kill him to actually maybe sort of developing feelings for him. This I first thought was not a retelling of Beauty and the Beast, but it is a retelling of Beauty and the Beast, but with fairies and just so many other different aspects to this book. And I enjoyed so much about this new retelling of with the fairies and Sarah J. Maas, and how she wrote this retelling of Beauty and the Beast was absolutely amazing. I love how instead of it being talkative animated characters who come to life, like plates and everything, for them instead to be fairies and having their own background story and the background story of how this world came. And it was just absolutely amazing to read. Also, just to warn you now, I will be doing I'm doing the book review first, and then we will also be doing a book discussion, book talk towards the end. So if you have read this book, you definitely can watch the whole thing. But if you haven't read this book yet, I would only suggest watching the first 5 minutes of it before I would click out of it and come back to it at another time. Farah definitely became my favorite character out of all of them. Her sisters were not so much. They kind of reminded me of the Wicked Sisters from Cinderella a little bit, because they never did anything, and here's Farah doing all of this work for them. And I absolutely loved watching Farah grow as a character throughout the book, and how she comes to terms with a lot of things, and how she starts to see the world through a different set of eyes, I guess you could say. I loved everything about the world created that Sarah J. Maas has created. I went into this book without reading the synopsis, and I think that was honestly the best thing I could have done for myself, is go into this book expecting nothing, because by the end of it, it was just so much more than I think of what I could have expected from it. And the characters all in general, Tamlin, who is Farah's capture, is honestly one of my favorites characters out of this whole thing. I absolutely loved everything about Tamlin. I loved how Sarah J. Maas depicted these immortal fairies, and it was just a new sense of fairies than what you honestly think fairies are. Usually when you think of fairies, you think of sparkly, glittery, cute, pink, purples, those type of things, but I loved how the plot progressed throughout this book. You had a sense of kind of what was going to happen, but at the same time, you didn't. I didn't think there was going to be much to Farah and her whole character development, but I was obviously very wrong, because there's a lot, and I was thinking, how are things going to truly work out in the end? But in the end, I just couldn't have expected more. I guess I couldn't have read this book any other way, because it was just so amazing, and I loved everything about it. I loved a lot of the quotes and the dialogues throughout this book. It just came to life in front of me. I felt like I was almost sitting there watching a movie, watching these characters come to life, and the beautifulness of how these characters all worked together was just simply amazing to read. I also have some tabs here that I had from marking some of my favorite quotes and questioning okay, what's gonna happen next, because there's a lot of things where you're like, did that just happen, or what's gonna happen next, really throughout this book. I definitely suggest that you pick it up if you have not read it. Sarah J. Maas is honestly an amazing writer. If you have not read her Throne of Glass series yet, definitely pick those up as well, because I just could not recommend them any more than anything, and I honestly am looking forward to Sarah J. Maas's future books and future writings, and I am super excited, and I definitely will be rereading this book fairly soon. Alright guys, so if you haven't read this book, I would suggest clicking out of this video and coming back to it later when you have read the book and you ready to start a book discussion on this book. And as for the people that have read this book, let's get into this book discussion and talk about said book. Alright guys, so since you've stuck around, I'm assuming that means that you have read A Court of Thorns and Roses, and you definitely want to talk about this book, so let's get talking. So like I said previously, I did not know what to expect when I got into this book. I did not read the synopsis, so I honestly didn't know what was going to happen. I knew it was a retelling of Beauty and the Beast, but I didn't know to what extent until I started reading it. I found it really interesting how Sarah J. Maas laid out this plot and laid out these characters and laid out this whole background story between the humans and the fairies, and how these fairies have come to become very feared creatures because of the fact that they are rumored to kill people, and they're rumored to take women and eat them alive and slaughter their children. And it just amazed me, I guess, how different things could be. I definitely loved reading Farah's background story on how she made this promise to her mother to take care of her family, and I guess I just don't know how I could do it in her circumstance, where she just wanted to be free from her family, yet at the same time she was tied down to this obligation of staying with her family and making sure they got by. I kind of wonder if her mother knew that something bad was going to happen. And then I guess I was at first fairly confused about the whole wolf thing, until it kind of got explained about how fairies can turn into well, technically high fairies can turn into these beasts, but high fairies can help other fairies turn into these wolves, and the whole skinning and her killing it was definitely interesting. I honestly, throughout this whole book, thought there was a treaty. I did believe that there was a treaty between humans and fairies, because you'd think, like, they've been at war for so long, maybe there is a treaty, but it kind of, oh my gosh, there were just so many things that I thought to be true, but by the end of the book were not true. I loved the idea of the different parts of the Beauty and the Beast aspect, and then A Court of Thorns and Roses aspect as well, and like separating them. And I loved Lucian. He was honestly my next favorite character next to Tamlin, although Tamlin is my bae. I love him to bits. I loved everything about his character, his aggressiveness, his down-to-earth, just the way he acted throughout the book was just totally, I guess, feral. And then I found very interesting the whole masquerade ball, and how they were cursed then, and then there was the blight that they lied about. Well, sort of. The blight, the curse that was put on all of them, and how they had to pretty much wear these masks forever. That was it. I had a hard time picturing everyone in masks because of the fact that Farah was always trying to picture Tamlin in a different way, so I was getting a little mixed up between what Tamlin actually looked like without his mask on and what Tamlin looked like with his mask on. I just loved how Sarah J. Maas just took this Beauty and the Beast retelling and twisted it and turned it and made it her own, because I found that really amazing, and I was hoping that Tamlin and Farah would be together, but then after a while I started thinking, like, oh my gosh, but if they're together, she's mortal and he's immortal, what's gonna happen then? Are they gonna have half-mortal children or something? Until, like, the very end, where they were all, like, putting life back into her, into an immortal being, and I just was like, okay, this is how it happened. I don't know how I feel about it yet. Like, I'm glad, because then the relationship works out better with her being immortal and they can be together forever. But I also felt Farah's awkwardness, because she's seeing all these things in a new light, and she's an immortal now who's lived her life as an immortal and she doesn't know how to adjust. So I definitely liked how Sarah J. Maas ended it with her just showing not even the beginnings of her adjusting. And honestly, if there was like a sequel, like a miniature sequel to this book, I would love to see how things play out, not only with Farrah and Tamlin, but also with Farrah and her family, because even though her sister told her never to come back because they're fine, they're taken care of, at the same time, I feel like Farrah's whole purpose throughout the book was her family, and so it was definitely a different ending to what I kind of expected. And although I am definitely happy with everything that was written, I loved the ending, I loved the twist with the trials, and my heart pounding when she was gonna kill Tamlin, and I was kind of confused about the whole metal thing, so definitely explain that to me, like tweet it to me or Instagram it to me about the whole metal thing and how she knew that she was okay to stab him. So yeah, comment that below as well. And if you guys have read this book, definitely leave your comments below and tell me what you really enjoyed. Just be careful not to spoil it, so definitely tweet me, email me, or even Instagram me, so then we can definitely do a book discussion on A Court of Thorns and Roses. Alright guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. Definitely leave your comments below. Remember to tweet me, Instagram me, or email me about the book. Also remember to give this video a thumbs up, and also remember to subscribe to my channel for more videos. You've noticed I've been sticking to a schedule, sort of, but I will always tweet out if I'm not going to be doing a video on a certain day, so definitely keep your eyes out for that. I'll see you guys in my next video. Bye!